What's up, guys? Coach Powers here today talking with you about stabilizing. Probably one of the biggest misconceptions I deal with is around what stabilizing looks like. Okay, so people often will come to me and they've started their taper, and probably they were already in tolerance withdrawal and probably not doing that well prior to the taper, but sometimes they are, and the doctor tapers them, and then sure enough, soon enough, hell begins. And usually it's a case where they were tapering too fast, and they come to me and they say, I'm having all these symptoms and I don't know what to do. So I say, okay, how fast were we tapering? We figure out usually that they were tapering too quickly. Say, okay, let's slow down and let's stabilize. Well, a couple weeks go by, a month goes by, and they'll reach back out and say, I don't think I'm stabilizing. I'm still having withdrawals. I'm still going through all these crazy things. I thought you said I would stabilize by now. So I want to address this because over and over again, I have to kind of re-explain what stabilizing is and what it looks like. And so what the misconception is that stabilizing means you reach a base where there are no symptoms, or you go back somehow to where you were before the symptoms, before you started tapering. In my experience now dealing with, literally hundreds of people and having gone through it myself, I can tell you that that is not the case. Almost never is that the case where someone begins tapering too fast and then needs to stabilize and then reaches that sort of regular base again, that place where they felt before they tapered. It's almost never that. I mean, rarely do I see something like that. What it usually is you reach a kind of new normal of hell. I mean, sorry to say it that way, but it is kind of what it is. You reach just a new level. Now, that level can change. So if you're coming down, let's say, from 10 milligrams Valium, and you get down to 8 milligrams, and you're like, oh my God, I went too fast. I don't feel like I'm stabilizing. Okay, let's stabilize you. We could take 2 to 4 weeks, 2 months even, depending on how quickly you tapered and how bad your symptoms are. So then you stabilize. Now, we can measure that maybe a 1 to 8, or 1 to 10, and let's say it's a 7 now. That's 7 severity, 1 being no symptoms, 10 being severe symptoms. You're at a 7. You were at a 9. You've come down to a 7. 7 now is kind of your base for that period of time. Doesn't mean that's going to be your base for the entire journey. Your new normal could, when you get down to 5 milligrams, you could turn a corner, and your new normal could be a 5 or a 4. You could get down to 2-3 milligrams and find yourself almost symptom-free and having many windows. That happens all the time. On the other hand, you could have a 7 or 8, in symptom scale, the entire journey. I mean, that is your new normal. So a lot of times for people, as they get lower in their dose, what they discover is they never really reach that. They never really feel good again. They never really feel the way they did prior to tapering until after they've completely come off the drug. So that is an option. Now, the problem I have with a lot of people online is trying to predict for others what their journey is going to look like. So if you're in hell, again, okay, coming down 1 milligram of Ativan, you come down 10%, and you've now reached this place of hell, and you're having, on the scale 1 to 10, you're having, again, an 8. They tell you, well, that's going to be your normal all the way through. And that's just simply not true. It could easily alleviate. And usually the journey is, it's up and down. It's up and down. It's you're an 8, you're a 5, you're a 7, you're a 9, you're a 4. It's up and down. And I just think it's important to know what stabilizing means, because if you're sitting back waiting to stabilize and waiting to reach this normal place, and then you're going to taper and go through hell, and then you're going to stabilize and reach this plateau again, this normal state, that's probably not going to happen. I mean, it can happen, and it does happen for people, don't get me wrong. But for a lot of us, if it's been a month or two and you've been holding steady on your dose, doing everything else, your exposure, your exercise, eating right, sleeping right, practicing, the good program for recovery, at that point, we just have to say, oh, look, this is the new norm for this moment. This is stabilized. You've had, stabilizing just means reaching a sort of steady blood level concentration over a period of time, and getting those symptoms and everything to sort of stop swinging up and down so much, which there's 99% of the time related to the blood level concentration fluctuation of benzodiazepine in your system. Okay? So this is important to know, because otherwise you're sitting there for months going, why am I stabilizing? Why? Where's the stabilizing coming? You are stabilized, most likely. So now, yeah, and that's a heavy thing to lift, because now you're like, oh crap, this is where I'm at, and now I have to taper? Probably. If it's been a couple months and that's where you are, then that's where we are. Now we have to make a decision. Do we taper? Do we continue our taper? Do we hold longer? Is it too rough? Do we go back up on our dose? Do we get an antidepressant? Do we get some kind of adjunct therapy to help us? Everybody's ride's different. But what I can assure you is whatever the hell you're going through, not whatever hell you're going through, whatever hell you're going through, it varies. So if you're really suffering, don't freak out and have yourself convinced that this is it all the way to the finish line. And most likely it's not the case. It's going to fluctuate up and down, and vice versa. If you're someone who's having a great ride all the way down, don't be too greedy and think that there's no way that you can't have a symptom flux and or a symptom spike or something of that nature. I just think it's important to realize that most likely the journey is going to be up and down, up and down. That cat's clawing at the door. And on that note, I will leave you.